Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Hump Day. My name is Casey Halpern, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my good friend and de facto family member of Profit Exchange, the godfather of Jets Twitter, creator of the best subscription content on planet Earth, Badlands, Joe Caparoso. Joe, it's been a few months since we've talked publicly, and quite a lot has happened to our beloved Jets since. But before we dive into the state of the Jets Union, how you feeling? You're on mute.
I'm so excited that I'm forgetting to unmute my mic. What I just said is that I'm excited. I'm happy. It's been a very good week to be a Jets fan, and there's been a limited number of weeks that we've been able to say that recently. For all this to be happening, draft week especially, it's great. It's like the offseason is always very fun. When you're a Jets fan, this has been a different level of it, and honestly, I don't know how you can't be smiling ear to ear right now if you're a Jets fan.
It's hard not to. It's like I'm ecstatic, and it kind of just like hit me today during the press conference. Like when the news broke on Monday, I was like, wow, like it was like shocking, but like it was something we anticipated for like 6 weeks, and something I always knew was going to happen. So it's like I was initially like so excited when he went on McAfee, I don't know, 6 weeks ago and said, my intention is to play for the New York Jets. Like I was absolutely insane. Like I literally dropped out of the meeting and was yelling and was basically doing the discount double check all over my office. And then the news broke on Monday. I was like, all right, like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. But then today you watch the press conference and it's like, holy crap. Like the Jets have Aaron Rodgers as our quarterback. It hits you like a ton of bricks. And it's like, obviously it's great news. It's news us Jets fans aren't used to. But I'm curious to hear from you when the Rodgers news finally broke kind of after 6 or 7 weeks of anticipation. Paint us a vivid picture of your in-office reaction before you rushed out to do the emergency podcast with Connor.
I was on the 71st floor of World Trade Center, which is where my office is. And I was actually just getting ready to leave for the day, fortunately. And I started getting all these like weird slacks all at once. And I was like, I've been waiting for this to happen. Like I knew it was going to come one of these days. And I was like, from the people who were slacking me and from the text I was getting, I was like, oh, it must have happened. So I clicked on one of the links. It was to the Schefter tweet that had the compensation. I read it like 4 times in a row, like committed it to memory, texted Connor. When I texted him, I think it was actually the first time he found out. And I was like, I'm just going to get home as fast as I can and we'll figure it out. And it's usually like an hour and 15-minute commute at that time of the day. It was around like 5 o'clock or whatever. And I don't know. The rest of it was a blur. I was on the PATH train and then I was back in Hoboken and then I was in one of the cabs by the PATH train. And then I was sitting here with the headphones on recording with Connor before I knew it. And, you know, when I first digested it, like from a analyst standpoint, I was like, yeah, that was a little more than I expected. And then immediately I was like, I just don't care. I'm just happy it's done. I'm happy it's done now. And this isn't going to be a thing that happens in training camp. And if he plays more than 1 year, I wouldn't even think twice about this being too much compensation. Now, look, he's Rodgers. Anything can happen. But judging from today's press conference, he certainly sounds like a guy who's going to play more than 1 year. Let's hope that's the case. But Monday, yeah, it was a whirlwind, even though we knew the day was coming. I was starting to feel like it was going to happen before the draft and not after the draft. There was too much needed urgency from both sides to put this behind them. Green Bay doesn't want the distraction around Jordan Love, understandably. And there's no way the Jets and the Jets organization does not want every day possible going into the season to soak up Aaron Rodgers being their quarterback from a season ticket perspective, from a merchandise perspective. It makes sense for it to happen before the draft.
It kind of felt like if it wasn't now, then it's going to drag out all throughout into August, like right before training camp or like right around then. And I don't think either party wanted that. Like they just wanted to get it over and done with. The Jets, was the compensation maybe a little too rich for what I would have liked? Yes, but as you said, I'm making that trade 100 times out of 100. I'm taking that swing. Like that's why you kind of stockpile the picks and continue to accumulate that draft capital. You go out and get something like this. Like former MVP quarterbacks aren't on the trade market too often. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
It's a unique situation, and the Jets, after missing on Zach Wilson, they had to make this type of move to try to maximize this window. Their plan was We're going to build around Zach Wilson. By year 2 and year 3, we're going to be ready to win with him. And we're going to put Garrett Wilson around him and Breece Hall around him and AVT and Sauce Gardner and still have Quinn Williams. The only problem is that Zach Wilson has been terrible. And you leave yourself with limited options then, especially when it's year 3 for your head coach, year 5 for your GM. You need to, win this year and next year. And a unicorn situation where you have someone like Rodgers, who has won 2 NFL MVPs very recently, available, and they were able to thread the needle and take advantage of it. There's definitely ways this might not work out. It doesn't matter. They didn't have another play on the board. This was their best play on the board. We have no idea what's going to happen with the Lamar Jackson situation. It's a bizarre one. He may end up going back to Baltimore. I don't know. But beyond that, you sign in Jacoby Brissett. You sign in Jimmy Garoppolo. You're hoping you go 8-9, 9-8. They weren't going to risk that with this window, and they were able to take advantage of it. And if Rodgers is 90% of the guy he's been most of the last few years, the Jets are one of the best teams in the AFC, and they should break this playoff drought, which has to happen at a certain point.
I mean, it must. Look, I'm excited. It got me to even throw on my Jonathan Vilma Youth XL.
A classic.
Jersey. I can't
2004. I love it.
I can't even breathe in this thing, but I'm wearing it.
I have a jersey older than that. It's a Curtis Martin jersey. It's comically oversized on me still. I have no idea how I used to wear it when I was young. I only break it out for very special occasions. I was wearing my grandpa's 80s jacket yesterday when we recorded that.
I commented in the Discord. I love that jacket. I need that.
It's an all-time jacket. And look, it's just going to be fun for the next couple years. Next year. Let's start with the next year. I don't want to skip ahead. They're going to be a public team, a national team. We're going to get to see Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson play on Sunday Night Football. We're going to get to see the Jets get that kind of spotlight. And I know everyone be careful what you wish for, because you lose those primetime games. It's that much more difficult and that much more embarrassing. Honestly, after watching the past 6 years with the Jets being not just bad, but largely irrelevant, this is a welcome change. And from a football standpoint, Rodgers was hurt last year. He was adapting to a new, younger roster and was still pretty good. Certainly much better than most of the quarterbacks in the NFL. He looks in shape. Looks like he's a little leaner in a good way. Sounds like he's focused and angry at how the situation ended with Green Bay. Got a fire. I don't want to, again, I don't want to read too much. I'm seeing this through my Jet fan glasses. I don't want to be too biased and like, oh, he's on a mission to kill Green Bay. But there's plenty of reason to be optimistic that this should work very well. Aaron Rodgers throwing the football to Garrett Wilson is going to be damn near impossible to stop. And that doesn't even speak to the rest of the offense and having one of the best defenses in the NFL. The Jets should be an 11 or 12 win team next year. And I'm saying that even before they make their draft picks and make any other roster tweaks. And I know there's a million things that could happen. I can't remember the last time we could credibly say that was the expectations for them. Probably 2011, which didn't live up to those expectations. And it's a welcome change. And I agree. It didn't really set in until you saw him in the building today. The loud dap with Robert Saleh that I heard across the Hudson River is just like so happy that he was there. And it's great. He's practicing with the team like now, and he's going to be organizing that stuff. And it's funny to see and hear all that after how his last few off seasons with Green Bay went.
It was one of the best introductory press conferences I've seen from the Jets, and we've seen a lot of bad ones, namely Mr. Adam Gase's.
Yes, it was smooth. It was a very smooth day. Credit to the Jets, PR and media team. They've dealt with some of these somewhat circus scenarios before with Tebow, and with Gase ended up going in that direction. And it was really smooth. And Rodgers was smooth. The team was smooth. It's in the past now. Can focus on the draft, can focus on OTAs, can focus on, here's a picture of Rodgers and Garrett Wilson throwing passes in California, and all that fun stuff that we're going to get to see leading up to the preseason and week 1. So don't overthink this if you're a Jets fan. Don't rip your hair out because you might have to give up the 27th pick next year. It's time for relevant football. It's time to see the team win games. And I think they could take a real run at winning the AFC East now. And again, it's been a long time since you could say that.
I am in complete agreement with you. It's time. Take it one day at a time, though. We deserve this. But piggybacking off that, the draft is tomorrow. We do now have the 15th pick in the draft. You and Connor did one final mock stream and delivered us the following. In round 1, Paris Johnson, the O-lineman from Ohio State. based on reports today, it seems like he might go a little earlier than expected. Then Keanu Benton, the defensive lineman from Wisconsin, who I'm a massive fan of. I'm biased, though, a Wisconsin alum. Oluwatimi, the center from Michigan. I believe he was the Outland Award winner this year. Keaton Mitchell, the running back from East Carolina, and Lonnie Phelps, the edge from Kansas. I would be completely fine with that class. I even love it. I think getting Paris Johnson, Keanu Bentu, and Oluwatimi would be massive, massive upgrades to positions of need on the offense and defensive lines. Let's say, though, if one of those top offensive linemen don't fall to us at 15, right? Like one of Jones, Wright, Johnson, and Skoronski. I think one will still be there, but let's say for this exercise, all four are gone. What would you like to see the Jets do?
I mean, if JSN isn't on the board, which it'll be hard to see him get past 13, that's initially where my head goes. Like, okay, like go get the weapon for Rodgers. Everyone will be like, oh, look at Rodgers' new team already getting him a weapon day one. You know, could they go edge rusher like Nolan Smith? Could they go Cansey on the defensive line? Maybe. I mean, those are some of the other names. I think it's going to be a really hard spot to trade down from. Right. I don't see the board breaking that way. I also think, and I tweeted about this a little today, I understand the initial thought and sentiment to say, okay, the Jets only have 5 picks this year. Joe Douglas is going to want to try to trade down and get a bunch of picks, and like they'll take a bunch of dart throws on day 3 and maybe get picks for next year. I actually wouldn't be surprised if after they've made so many picks in 2020 and 2021, they took 9 players in 2020, I think 10 players in 2021. Last year, it was down to 7, and all 7 were in the first 4 rounds. This year, they have 5 picks, all in the first 5 rounds. I think they're going to be happy taking somewhere between 4 and 6 players, which I wouldn't be surprised if they actually tried to trade up at some point, maybe even from 15 to be aggressive to get one of the guys they really want. After making so many picks over the last few years, and with the shape of this roster being in win now mode, you don't want to add like 8-9 rookie draft picks to the roster because people they're not just going to make the team, and there's going to be nowhere to put them. So this would actually be the kind of year where I could see them only leaving with 4 or 5 players. And if they do trade down, it's for picks next year versus picks this year. And I think similar to last year, they're going to be done by the end of round 5 at the absolute latest, if not even done by the end of round 4, if they do try to trade up and be more aggressive. So I wouldn't even be shocked that if it looks like the board's starting to not break their way, if they try to jump from 15 to 11 and get one of the tackles, or try to be a troll and jump from 15 to 12 and get JSN if all the tackles are gone. Because I think with how the roster is now, I don't think they're going to mind leaving with 4 picks earlier versus 7 or 8 picks and having a lot of them be dart throws. Because when you made so many picks over the past few years, and you also have UDFA sticking around Zonovan Knight and Huff and some other guys, there's not that many roster spots at the bottom for 6th and 7th round picks.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen tomorrow night. I'm very excited. I will say it's been nice to not obsess over the draft as we have been doing for so many off seasons. It's our first time not picking the top 12, I think, in 7 years.
1,000 years, whatever it feels like.
I actually have yet to do one PFF mock draft, so I'm proud of myself. I'm going to do one tomorrow. I'll put it out on Twitter. But typically one of my best friends and I, Tommy, we do this at least one a day. It's disgusting, but it feels nice to not have to do this. I will say there's one intriguing team that can possibly trade up with us that caught my eye. Maybe Dallas wants to jump in front of us so they get in front of the Commanders to maybe grab Michael Mayer or perhaps Bijan Robinson before the Commanders do. That would be interesting. Let's say if all the linemen and JSN are off the board. I wouldn't mind.
Look, there's going to be a trade at some point in day 1 or day 2 from the Jets, just which direction it slides in. So I wouldn't totally write it off. This is a very weird and wide open draft. It's very hard to predict what's going to happen. It's generally considered not a good draft. We'll see whether that actually holds true or not. So I think there's going to be a lot of movement from a lot of different teams trying to position themselves for the small handful of players they think could be immediate impact players overall.
Definitely. I'm excited to see how it all unfolds. But before we get out of here, I have a few more questions. First, I want us to both just take a moment to recognize the quarterbacks that came before Aaron Rodgers that came after Brett Favre. So I present to you the list of quarterbacks we were forced to watch start at QB or play meaningful snaps. Some real names are on this list. I don't know if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Mark
I love
Sanchez.
him. Okay.
Underrated. Probably
Underrated.
the best quarterback from the Jets in the last 15 years. Give him that.
Yes.
Mark Sanchez, Kellen Clemens, Tim Tebow, Greg McElroy, Geno Smith, Michael Vick, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Bryce Petty, Josh McCown, Sam Darnold, Luke Falk, Trevor Siemian, Pro Bowler, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, Josh Johnson, Mike White, the savior. These are the quarterbacks we've suffered through since Brett Favre's lone season as a Jet. This is the bridge we had to go on to get to this day. It's kind of surreal to think we have Aaron Rodgers as the starting quarterback of our Jets. I mean, we have this guy that I once witnessed in person orchestrate a 21-3 comeback on our beloved Jets in 2014. When Rodgers is at his best, he is the most surgical QB of all time, and I don't think anyone can really debate that. I know he had a down year last year due to injuries, inexperienced skill group, etc., but I'm pretty optimistic he's going to return to that MVP form, and it seems like he's a little motivated now. So, God willing, all good things ahead for the Jets, and we don't have to suffer through these guys that you're screaming no, 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 no when they drop back to pass and release the football. Like, that's a comforting feeling for us.
It's going to be very, very refreshing after that list that you just ran through to most weeks, really like just about every week outside of when they're playing the Chiefs and maybe arguably Buffalo, depending on how Josh Allen's feeling that week, to have the best quarterback on the field and say, look, we have the advantage at quarterback. And it's something that's been so hard to say as a Jets fan. And, you know, last year you could say a lot of times we have the advantage on defense, or maybe we have the best receiver on the field. Doesn't matter if you're losing the quarterback battle, and they lost the quarterback battle in all those 6 games down the stretch that they lost that knocked them out of the playoffs. And there's going to be a lot of weeks this year where they're better at quarterback and Rodgers makes things happen when other things break down. That is going to open the door for them to win games they just haven't won in the past. He's 80-10 when his defense holds a team under 20 points. The Jets averaged allowing 18 points last year. That's a very good sign of things that could be to come from this marriage.
God willing, all good things. Before we get out of here, I want to play a word association game. I picked out 4 games from those previous quarterbacks I listed. I want you to give me 1 or 2 words to describe the following performances. Are you ready?
Yes.
Greg McElroy's 7-6 win versus the Arizona Cardinals.
Boring. Most boring game I've ever watched in my life.
Geno Smith getting his jaw broken.
TMZ. It's just a total, like, unbelievable story that happened. I still can't wrap my head around the first time I read what happened.
It was a blessing in disguise that year, but
yes.
Definitely a screwed up situation. Luke Falk on Monday Night Football versus the Cleveland Browns.
Rock bottom, just hopeless, season hopeless by week 2. Nothing worse than that.
And last but not least, this is recent, and this was on the night of the Badlands Profit Exchange watch party. Chris Trevler coming in for relief of Zach Wilson on Thursday Night Football versus the Jaguars in hopes to save the Jets' playoff chances.
Beyond parody. That's what we were watching on their only primetime game at our watch party. Basically a fullback trying to will them back in a must-win game. And that's why I'm so excited for this year when we do a watch party. We're going to be watching Aaron Rodgers and the 9-2 Jets play, New England or Buffalo. It's going to be much better.
It's pretty crazy that, like, I feel like those 4 performances, like, perfectly encapsulate the last 11 years as Jets fandom. It's really just been so dark. And we deserve this. We deserve Rodgers at his peak of his powers, and hopefully we get it. Who's one veteran free agent out there that might not be available yet, or that you would like to see the Jets come and grab before training camp?
I think Quan Alexander is coming back. I think that will happen pretty soon after the draft. I'd still watch Al Woods, not a flashy name, but he's a D lineman. Kevin Byard, he's not fully released yet, but they need more at safety. That could be a name to watch. I'm kind of giving up on the flashy addition at receiver. But if it does happen, maybe watch Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. I don't think Hopkins is going to happen, although I hope I'm wrong. So Byard, Woods, Quan coming back. Yeah, I think that's roughly what I'm looking at. I still wouldn't be surprised if they made one of the funny, like, Mercedes Lewis or Randall Cobb additions just for the hell of it. But that's kind of what I'm watching for.
I would love Byard, Quan, and Al Woods. Just plug and play guys that have experience and are also really good still.
Yes,
Last but not
100%.
least, as we stand here today, what's your expectation going into the season? Playoffs or bust?
It's definitely playoffs or bust. Anything short of the playoffs is a total failure this year.
Completely agree.
I think I think it's 50-50 if they could win the AFC East. I want to see how the roster comes together. I want to see if there's any injuries, but I think they got a real path to winning the AFC East as well. And you win the AFC East, you got a home playoff game, and that's something it's been even longer that we've been waiting for. So I think that's a nice bar to strive towards. Playoffs are table stakes. I think winning the AFC East is the real goal.
I am with you. I'm confident they could get there. They have a lot of work left to do, as you said, on the acquisition side. They got to shore up the roster, the offensive line, D line, even linebacker and safeties, obviously, which has been a long problem that you and Connor have spoken ad nauseum about. But hopefully they plug these holes accordingly, starting with tomorrow night in the draft. Joe, thank you so much for doing this. I had a blast. Always a pleasure with you. What do you have to plug? Where can people find you? Tell them about War Room. Great stuff on the horizon for Badlands.
We are very busy on our Patreon. You can follow Badlands at patreon.com/BadlandsTOJ. We have a $3 tier, a $5 tier, and a $10 tier. $10 tier has been cranking with extra video content, interviews, access to our draft guide, season preview guide, our Discord, which is a lovely collection of Jet fans in an all-day group chat that I highly recommend you joining. So a lot of stuff popping. We'll have reaction to every single pick all weekend. We'll have a bunch of preview content out Thursday, Friday, Saturday before the picks are made. And, we used to be a weekly podcast, and now it kind of feels like we're a daily podcast right now. And I don't expect that to change anytime soon.
Take it from me. It's the best $10 you could spend a month. The content they put out literally daily is incredible and second to none. And Joe, I can't thank you enough for doing this and providing us with all that great content, especially
Amen.
That $10 discount. I mean, no brainer.
Hey, thank you. We appreciate the kind words. We always appreciate working and partnering with you guys, and we're excited to run it back when we get back to this season.
Absolutely. Knicks winning tonight?
I think they close it out in game 6, not game 5, but I do think they close it out. I hope I'm wrong, though. I hope they just close it out tonight for everyone's stress level.
I think they're gonna. All right. Exciting times ahead in New York. Tomorrow's the draft. JETS, jet up, baby. Joe, always a pleasure.
Thank you.